The tank is mounted now, it's on its mount. Everything's all bolted in. It's I couldn't go any lower with it because of the hub for the driven clutch. So I hope that's low enough. I'll find out when I go to put the fake fuel tank on. But yeah, it's mounted and everything clears. This thing's almost ready to run. I got lucky, it fits alright. And it sets down on the frame so I don't have to add anything underneath these side pieces. I thought I might have to add something in there, but no, she sits good. So, yeah, that'll work. So I get consistent warm weather of fiberglass. I'm assembling my steering rods here. And there's a left-hand thread on one end and a right-hand thread on the other end. Putting the left-hand thread on the outboard side. This has these things here to when it bolts on to the arm on the steering knuckle, it allows it to move. Change angles as it changes the angles from when it's steering. This is the left-hand side, and the right-hand side, this will bolt through the steering arm on the steering shaft. And there's a flat here for a wrench. The reason that is so you can turn this, they'll go in and out. I'm assembling my steering rods here. And there's a left-hand thread on one end and a right-hand thread on the other end. Putting the left-hand thread on the outboard side. This has these things here to when it... That's how that fitting sets. That works pretty good. It's actually a washer either side of this Heim joint in here, so that's nice. We'll play in there. So basically I've got her kind of towed in a little bit. When I get the body finished on for good, I'll run some strings and adjust it, but right now it appears that I have steering. How about that? It's quick steering too. That's good. I like quick steering. So yeah, got this cut down. I wanted a 2-hole, but at the time they were out of stock, so I got a 3-hole and just made it into a 2-hole. I got that ground down. I got to cut these off some, and right now I've got just straight nuts on everything, but when I put it together, finally, when it's done, I'll have knot locks on everything. That will definitely work. I cut these holes in the body for the tie rods to go through. I measured from the frame while the body was off, so make sure I have clearance sideways, and then up and down I've got 2.5 inches of travel. So I had to make sure I had 2.5 inches clearance above it, so this ended up being 4 inches. I just cut the bottom from the frame because when it bounces up and drops down, you know, I didn't want it to hit the body, so that's what those holes are for. Necessary evil. I got my pedals figured out pretty much together. This is for the brake. This is master cylinders, an ATV master cylinder from Amazon. It was pretty inexpensive, a little over 20 bucks. These are go-kart pedals from one of the go-kart suppliers. And this is the quarter or the 1-inch square tubing. It's a 100 thousandths wall thickness that I use to make my fuel tank mount. So then they're working. This one doesn't need a return spring. It's got a return spring in the master cylinder, so that's worked pretty good. This is my throttle. I did use the return spring for this one. I'll probably run the throttle cable to a bolt here. I'll probably run a bolt with a lot of threads on it through here, but that also anchors the return spring, so it's a good return spring. And I'll drill holes through here to bolt this down through the belly pan. Down in there, sort of like that. This is the start of my exhaust system. I got this from one of the go-kart parts suppliers. Most of them carry these. It's called a U-welded exhaust for the 212 engines. This is how I want to run it. I want to run it down, and then out the back I could connect it to this muffler hanging off the rear of the frame there. And it's kind of a weird shape, so I had to reshape it. And it's not going to fit perfectly, but I'm going to try to get it tacked on in the places where it does fit, and I have to have clearance for these nuts and hold it on. And then I'm hoping I can use some heat and a little hammer and pound the inside out to fit. Gotta hold this in place and tack it on there, and then take it off and weld it up. Well, I got my pipe basically together. It has to move back and forth as the engine moves. Putting some of the last pieces of wood on the body. I've used 1x 3/4 inch wood added onto here, and I've undercut this piece along here to give this hanging out over the side here. These will look more like the bucket seats on the Stutz Bearcats were. Got to differentiate it from the body because I did overhang. Mainly it was to widen this area because I push up on this to get myself out of the cart. And the 1/2 inch plywood's a little more harder on your hand, so this is 1.25 inch, and it's a pretty light piece. Then I added a piece of 1/2 inch up here. I'll be bondoing all this, and then I could grind this down, taper it down. And I added these pieces back here. I just fill in this area a little bit, and I can round these corners off. I can do a really nice round over on here. So it just looks more like a Bearcat bucket seat. And then I have to put covering pieces over this open area up here where the springs work. So I made a spacer piece here of 1/2 inch. Go there. And then this piece, like that. And there'll be screws going in, and then I'll bore a hole. I've made a mark here, and I'll draw a line lined up with this mark, and then 3 inches down from this point, and I'll bore a hole for my 9/16 socket to go through for when I want to take that spring off. When I do my glassing, I'll put a piece of glass tape in here on the inside, and the glass on the outside will wrap around that. And that'll give support for this section of the floorboard. Put these foot braces in there so I have something to brace my feet against when this thing is bouncing around. And over there on the brake side, I put a brace up on the side so I can put my foot on so I don't ride the brake. I'm doing my rough grinding. I'm using a number 36 grit wheel. My grinding and rounding all this off. And taking away some wood down there, kind of lighten it up. So yeah, I got it all rough ground. And I'm going to do the finishing work with a flapper wheel. I think I got a 60 grit on it. This is a repair of a mistake. You know, I thought I made all these things long enough, but evidently I didn't, because I had a gap there. So I just glued in a piece of pine with tight bond glue. I thought, oh, I could use Bondo, but that thin area, I wouldn't trust Bondo, so I just glued in a piece of wood and I'll just shape it. Well, it's the last week in June, and I finally got weather for fiberglassing after all the storms coming through, the high humidity. So I got her sitting here. I'm going to do the sides first. That's some old 6-ounce cloth I had from doing boats, so I'm cutting out the piece for my floorboard, because that'll get a lot of wear. And I've got this 4-ounce cloth rather. Keep things nice and light and not make it too big, that I'm going to do the body with. So I've got a workbench set up here. It's actually my old form that I welded the frame on. And this end's going to be for laying out cloth, and this end is glass and stuff, and maybe doing some mixing there. But mainly I got my mixing set up over here on the bench, so I don't get everything sticky. Got rollers and brushes, so I'm ready to start glassing so I can get this body finished. So first I'm going to just brush out a layer of resin, straight resin, on this plywood, because it'll soak it up like a sponge. And if I laid the cloth on and then did the resin, it would soak it up and draw the resin out of the cloth. So do a layer of resin today and come in and do a layer of glass tomorrow. That's the plan anyway. So the mix is 2 to 1, 2 of resin to 1 of hardener. So with my little graduations here, the easiest way to figure it is I start out with 140 milliliters of resin, have that 70. So if I add 70 of that makes it 210. 210 is right there. So that's what I'm going to start with. It's going to be my mix. 140 of resin, 70 of hardener. For a total mix of 210 milliliters. Decided to go ahead and just use the mixing cup. With 1.5 brushes, it worked pretty well. The penetrating coat is on. And I'm going to let that dry overnight. And then tomorrow I'll be cutting the cloth. I'll lay the cloth out on there and I'll cut it so that everything overlaps. And then I cut some more resin and glue the cloth down. Just sweeping over this with a little bit of 80 grit. Knock off any high spots to smooth it out. And the cloth to lay on. I've measured the body at the widest part. I want 3 inches overhang, so it'll be about 2 feet. And then I measured the length. I'm going to allow 4 inches up there. And 66 inches long. I could fudge this top part a little bit. So that's what I got marked out here on my 4-ounce cloth. 2 feet by 66 inches. And I'm going to cut that out. I'm laying it out here dry, trying to form it around some of these areas. You can fudge it quite a bit actually, not too much. I might have to slit this to get this to form. Everything to lay flat, and I'll probably have to cut in here and cut here. Then I'm going to cut here and pull this back. Yeah, that should work. Get the lay of the land here. This is an important step because it can save you a lot of cutting and fitting on the corners. But it's going to have to be a certain amount of that anyway. Okay, I made some cuts to relieve the stress in some of these corners where it has to go two ways. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. I'll probably wind up slitting it and forming it around both sides of that 1x2. And I fudged this back here enough where I could cover that and form that around. So yeah, and we're ready to start spreading resin. If I have to add a piece in, I got plenty of pieces I can add in. But that's the general idea. I'm going to start rolling out resin and using my brush to dab in the corners, form it as I go. Here, I don't want too much resin. You can float the cloth right off if you use too much. Use my brush to dab it. You can actually move it pretty good just dabbing it. I want to get all those bubbles out. My scissors are covered with resin, and they've done this before. Well, the air cloth is down. I got a few weird places, which you always do. I'll let this harden up overnight. There's a place there needs to be. As it starts gelling up, you kind of push some of these places down. Some you can't. And yeah, I got some bubbles and I got some weirdness, but that's just part of glass. And I just slit this on the end and formed it around there. Formed it around best I can, worked it into all the little places with my brush. Overlapped, everything's overlapped. So yeah, that'll trim off tomorrow. I just run my file along the edge and it'll come right off. And any bubbles I'll open up, any weirdness I'll sand and file down, and then I'll roll a fill coat of resin on. And this side will be done until final sanding and painting. Yeah, good progress. I got my glass all cut for the other side. But tomorrow I'll do the fill coat on this. And if it sets up enough, I'll turn it over and start the other side. I'll probably let it set overnight again. I got the slow resin because the slow hardener for the resin, because it's otherwise I run out, it starts gelling on me. In fact, this even started gelling on me. It's pretty hot, so yeah, the fast hardener, you got to really work fast. I'm just not that fast anymore. So yeah, but this turned out nice. I'm happy with it, and that's the main thing. It'll work good. I've got layer cloth on the bottom here. I used the 6-ounce cloth.
It'll be taking a beating from maybe rocks and whatever else I run over. I've got a layer of cloth on the bottom here. I used the 6-ounce cloth. It'll be taking a beating from maybe rocks and whatever else I run over. And then I got a layer of 6-inch back here with the joint between the seat bottom and the seat back. So now I just have to trim this up and with fill coats on to fill the weave of the cloth. Cottonwood trees are releasing their cotton. I'll just wait till it sets up and just brush it off. Yeah, I made this pattern to fit on the grill on front, and I cut a piece of cloth, and I'll go over that, and a piece of this black screen that's going to make the grill. And I'll use that when I paint it. I'm going to paint the grill flat black. After I'll put some resin on there and then stick it on with the resin. Then when I paint, I'll paint the grill flat black. Then I'll put this in there and I'll paint the outside. I'm going to go gloss black on the radiator. I saw a picture of a Stutz Bearcat. It had the yellow body and the black radiator, and I thought it looked pretty good. I thought it looked striking. So that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, the bottom is just about done. Tomorrow I'll turn it over, start doing the inside and all the upper parts. Then she'll be fully glassed. Then I'll be sanding and painting. So I got the sealer coat on, all the bare wood on the inside and the upper parts that need to be glassed. The seat and the seat back just be resin coated. This floorboard where my feet go, that'll have that layer of 6-ounce cloth on it, and up there just cloth in the corners to support that front of the floorboard there. And then there'll be just a glass over the top back here, and then one down in the where the two pieces come together there. And then I got a sealer coat on the hood, so that'll get glassed tomorrow. When the cloth, I got all my cloth pieces over there ready to go on. So tomorrow I should finish up the cloth, and then I'll just have one more day to come back and put the fill coat to fill the weave, and then the glassing will be done, except for the tank and the trunk. That'll be another time, another day. But yeah, yeah, I've about had enough glassing. But this thing's almost done. It's turning out pretty nice. I got the last of the cloth on the body. Piece of 6-ounce down there in the floorboard where my feet go. And 6-ounce there, the junction of the seat pieces, and the 4 ounces over the top there. And this is everything else is 4 ounce. I've got to trim it up now and brush out the fill coat to fill the weave. And then it'll be ready for a lot of sand and prep for painting. And I got a layer of 4-ounce cloth on the hood. The fill coat of resin is on now. All the weave of the cloth is filled, so it's at maximum strength. And this body is fiberglassed. And the hood. Well, this is all glass now. Got the layer of cloth on and resin soaked. I've got a piece of cloth inside here, just kind of stability to all those layers. But I'm about out of resin. I'm about out of Systems 3. I got a little bit, probably enough to do the fill coat on that piece inside. So to do, I had to go to polyester. I still have plenty of cloth. I got polyester resin and catalyst. And I'm doing the trunk in polyester. It won't matter for this, it's just a plywood box. So I got that in glass. I'm going to get this in glass, but it's gotten cold outside and it's been rainy, so it didn't really harden up. This here, this is the top, it's still tacky, so that's not going to get its fill coat yet. And this one I'll do this side on the trunk, and then I'll probably get back on, I got a couple of days to set up. I'll get back on Friday and do the fill coats. Well, this thing is all glass now. Got a bubble in there, so I put a piece of peel ply over there to smooth the bubble out, see how well that works. I got some to try it, but so yeah, this is all fiberglass. I'll let that set up for a day, and then I'll trim it and put on the fill coat. You know, this is all glass now. Just got to trim it. I'm going to file over that edge and it comes right away. Fiberglassing is finished. It's the trunk that finishes it. So I struck the set. And now I'm into the next stage, sanding. Got a lot of sanding to do. I use my file to knock off all the drips, drops on the bottom here now. I'm set up for 100 grit sandpaper. I'm going to smooth her all out, prepare for priming and painting. Well, this thing is rough sanded with 100 grit on the machine and in hand where I couldn't get the machine, but yeah, it went pretty fast. It's sanded. So I'm ready to start laying on primer. And then I'll go over it with some like 120, smooth it down some, and then a little more primer. I'm ready to paint. I'm hand sanding with 120 grit, gone over it with the machine with 100 grit. I'm just smoothing up a few places. I'm going to do the bottom first. This is going to be flat black. And I'm going to do primer and paint. And then when I turn it up again, this should be the last time, hopefully, that it's upside down. And because I'm going to do quite a bit of work on the top, make sure that's really smooth. Well, it's all gray. I try to put light coats on, a couple minutes apart, as instructions say. And got this thing primered, and the base part of there, which will be flat black. I'll paint that same time, make the flat back on the bottom. And got the trunk, so everything I'm going to do flat black, then I'm going to do a textured brown, make it look like leather. And let's let this primer dry a little bit, and then I'll start shooting on the color. Okay, that's with the 2 good coats of flat black over 2 coats of primer, and flat black on there, textured brown on there. Well, I'm glad it's textured because this is one rough paint job. That's alright. It's too bad. I'll sand it down and redo it later. Right now I'm kind of trying to get running by Labor Day because there's a race down in Kansas, Florence, Kansas. It's going to be the first one of the big Cyclekart meets down there. They do a lot of things with dirt bikes, a lot of dirt bike Grand Prix, so we're going to have a Cyclekart Grand Prix down there, so I'm trying to get it running. I got about a little over a month to go. So hopefully tomorrow I'll get her turned over and I'll start laying the yellow on the body. I got the primer on everything. 2 light coats, or sorta, like the instructions say. Well, it's got a good coat of primer. See, it's a lot of imperfections. I could take a couple more days and sand it down and prime it again, but I want to get it running. I'm running low on time. So now I got a few runs. You can see the cloth in a few places. That shouldn't slow it down. I'm trying to get it running so I can make that Labor Day meet. So yeah, I'm going to let this dry for maybe 10-15 minutes and I'm going to start shooting color on it. Tuscan Sun. I had 6 cans of primer. I've used 4.5. And this is a hot spot aluminum paint that I used to paint the inside of the engine compartment areas. And there's my first can of Tuscan Sun. Getting ready to shoot that on. This is the first double coat. Here's 2 cans. Starting to look a little better. Tuscan Sun. Tuscan Sun is done. Turned out pretty nice. Had to do 3 coats actually. First coat, the primer underneath made it kind of greenish. So I put 3 coats on. It took 1 coat per can. I used 3 cans so far. Tuscan Sun. But yeah, it's pretty good. I got my grill done here. It's a piece of screen, plastic screen from the hardware store. I sprayed the back of it with flat black and sprayed the front of the grill with flat black and just stuck it in with the paint. See how that holds up. So I'm going to let this dry for at least 1 day, and then I'm going to come back and paint the black, the radiator, and I've got some clear coat to put over it, and then this body will pretty much be ready to go on the frame. That'll be exciting because I got my controls so I can get this thing running. I finally finished with my coatings. Got the truck bed liner back here in the cockpit area. No cushions in it yet, but yeah, it's going to be pretty nice, and that's nice there, non-skid in my footwell. So yeah, it's ready to put it back on the frame, start getting this thing together. I'm going to weigh it. Got the bathroom scales there. I'm going to weigh myself, and I'll pick it up and subtract my weight from the total weight, and I should have the weight of the body. I'm also going to do that with the front end of the cart, the back end, and the engine. Engine over there because I'm doing some things on it. Finish the exhaust, I'll weld a bracket on there, and do the final fitting on the clutches. And then she'd be ready to run. 175. 240.
Well, my weight was inconsistent depending on where I was standing, what I was standing on, but looks like the body weighs 65 pounds, the front weighs 55, the back weighs 95, and the engine weighs 40, for a combined weight of 255 pounds, which is pretty much normal for these. Now the question is, will it still fit on the frame with all the coatings on it? Or will I have to remove some of it? Let's find out. Alright. Wow. That's nice. Now it looks more like a Bearcat. I put my pedals in so I wouldn't have to work around the springs in the frame, put them in before I put it on. But yeah. Now I gotta get the brakes bled. Get the shims and spacers on my clutch, and run a fuel line, run brake line, run throttle cable, and again get this thing running. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. This is what I've been waiting to see. Now that looks like a Stutz Bearcat. I'm going to finish the welding on my exhaust pipe. I put this brace on there and welded up the slots where I kicked it up on the back to make it level. So that's done. I just need to grind the welds and paint it with the high temp paint and wrap it with the insulation. I'm working on my handbrake. I made this piece, which is the mount for it, and this is the handle. There'll be a push button here to release the pawl on the ratchet. And I welded on that pipe there that fits this 5/8 tubing. Now I got to drill through there with the 5/8 bit, and then drill a hole down here for the rod, and then make my the push button, the spring, and the rod going down here that'll release the pawl from the ratchet mechanism, which will be that. And I'm getting my hood straps on. Got a piece of 1/8 inch brass there. I drilled 2 holes in with 2 of those stainless steel 832 by 1 inch machine screws. Go through 2 nuts and washers on the inside. Still have to hook up this side, so I just got to stretch it tight and then cut it off level with the frame, and then drill and bolt this side, and I should have hood straps. Now I got this chrome molding going over the dash there, and I used this 1 inch plastic chrome molding with sticky back tape, so I got my hold down straps for the tank also, that material. Now I'm bleeding my hydraulic brake system. I'm adding fluid here as it goes down. Got my brake bleeder thing here. I had to take the wheel cylinder off, and so I can turn it upside down so that the bleeder fitting is at the top. Maybe eventually I'll make a different bracket for it, but right now this is what I got, so I just pump until I get solid fluid through here. Well, the brakes are bled out. Got a good pedal, and it actually does stop it, just rolling it forward. And now I'm hooking up a throttle link. The engine is on, the bolts are in. So I'm getting the controls hooked up so I can start this thing. I had to put a little solder on the end of this cable so it'll lift the slide. So I drilled a whole piece of wood and melted some solder into it, and then I frayed the end of the cable a little bit and stuck it in some flux, and then stuck it in the solder and held it in there till it hardens. Let's see how this works. Spring goes on. The slide has a slot in it. Some slot here. Yep, that'll pull it up. So fixing a little glue, fixing the glue. Like that. I wind up putting a safety wire around here, and probably going around this thing here. So because this comes up and gets stuck, you can hold the throttle open. So you don't like that. And it's going around under there. Getting the hood straps on. What I do, I just pull in it really tight as I can, and then cut it off a 1/4 inch above the frame there, and then setting that brass piece on there a 1/4 inch out, drilling the holes. It seems to work pretty good. The front one's pretty tight, so these are almost on. I got my foot throttle hooked up now. I made a bracket to anchor the housing, and I used a Dremel tool and cut down into that foot brace a little bit, so I got a straight run there. So now the foot throttle is hooked up. The hood straps are on now. I got a chrome strip on there, kind of a fake hood hinge. I made this stencil. I'm using my old racing number from Jalopy days, 105. I haven't seen any other Cyclekart using it, so that's what it's going to be. I'm going to do this one on this front with this ivory color. Kind of fogged under the edges of that stencil, so when that dries good, I'm going to have to tape it off and shoot a little more flat black on it. I'm going to wrap my exhaust. I've got a layer of tin foil on here, all crinkled up. We used to do that in the boat yard. It kind of contains the heat that makes it a little less hot in the engine compartment. You crumple it all up and it traps air in there, so it's a little insulation. I'm going to wrap it with the high temp insulation. That's how we used to do it in the boat yard. I actually had enough stuff. I got 2 layers on there, and now I've got this stainless steel seizing wire. Just gonna go around it with this, tight as I can get it. Yeah, I'll cut a little more. I'll do this area, and then that'll be ready to go on. The fuel line's hooked up, a filter there, a gallon and a half in the tank, and I'm going to put some oil in it. Amsoil, break-in oil. Got 2 quarts of this and a couple quarts of 1030 Amsoil, small engine oil. I added this thing here from Go Power Sports to direct more air across. Got my chain on. This is the gold chain, supposed to be the best I can get. It's turned out to be 29 inches long, which is good. I can get 2 chains out of a 5-foot length. And the nearest I could tell, if my count was right, 38 links. So I'm going to bolt the engine down. I don't want it real tight, don't want it too loose either, so that looks about right. So now I'll get the engine bolted down. I'm making a thrust washer for my driven clutch on the Vari-Drive unit. And I had 20 thousandths in play without a washer. It's still 30, yeah, I want about 40 thousandths, that's about right. A little more over here. They have a sleeve, it's 2 bearings with a sleeve in between, so they can tighten down on the sleeves. I just don't want to put too much load. You can pull the shaft right through the circlip on the backside if you have too much. I just wanted to get the play out and to keep the sprocket as close to the plate as possible, so I'm making my own thrust washer. That'll give me 20 thousandths of crush. I think that'll be fine. Oh yeah, custom thrust washer. 41, 39 and a half, 41, that should be about right. Clutches for the Vari-Drive unit. This is my driven clutch. I have washers and spacers I can put behind these so that they align. They have to align perfectly as you can get them. This has the little shim that I made so that it just barely tightens up on that internal sleeve. Now I'm going to put Loctite on these. I'm going to do another. And I'm going to put Loctite on this one too. What I'll do is last alignment check. I know it's straight. My file. It's not possible to bend without breaking it. So. Well, that's real close. Yeah, my smallest shim behind the juggernaut there. I think will work. Okay, I found it looking through the parts that came with the juggernaut. I found the bag that had the shims in there. I have the shim that I needed. So now the key to go in. Alright, nice and snug, the way I like it. If that alignment is going to get much more perfect than that. Now I need to put the belt on. The belt has one flat side and one angled side, because the pulley has a flat side and an angled side, both of them. So this has to go on with the flat side towards the engine. I don't believe in Loctite. You don't want it to come loose. It's got a nylon lock bolt. These things have been known to come loose, come off when you throw one of these. It's not pretty. Power Sports has 3 ugga-duggas. You don't want to tighten it up too tight, it'll pull that circlip through. That should be tight enough. I think that's 3 ugga-duggas. They recommend putting them on with an impact. And these have been known to come off too, so 3 ugga-duggas it is. Hopefully that'll stay on there. The alignment is real good. Yeah, it's not going to get much better than that. She might kick. Okay. I have to rid it. Do one more choke. Going to run under no load through a heat cycle, about 20 minutes to a half hour, and then let it cool down. Just do an initial break in, and then I'll take her out for a run, see how she does. Here's why I was idling too fast. I got too long of a blob. It was hitting the body of the carburetor. It wasn't let the slide go down to idle, so I'm just going to pull out a pair of pliers and take about 1/16, maybe almost an 1/8 off of the end of that. All it needs to be is big right here, but yeah, that end has to go, and we'll see how it idles. That was it. took these measurements a while back to make the spacers to mount the fuel tank cover and the engine cover. And I made these wood pieces to fit in there. And I'm going to drill holes through here, 5/16 hole all the way through. And I've got these pieces to go on the inside with I'm going to put T-nuts on them, nuts with the little spikes, and bolt those through. And I use those mounting the body also. I use those mounting the body on the places here where I didn't want a nut. I used 1/4" bolts going through the frame and the body in true Stevenson style. But here where I didn't want a nut, I used lock nuts. I didn't want a nut sticking through, so I used these T-nuts. They're embedded in the wood. And down there too. Then where I had the room, I just used lock nuts and washers. I'm locating where I want to drill my holes at. I got the trunk spaced with a piece of 1/4" ply, and I got it upright as I can, straight up off the frame. And I came down 5/8 because that's plenty close to the top web for strength, and 1.5" from each crossover frame. And set back here, we got a smaller area, so it came 1.25", get a little more spread between those bolts. So I'm going to center punch there and drill through both sides with 5/16 drill. I've got all the holes drilled in my frame where I want the bolts to go through, and I got my spacer pieces clamped in level with the top of the frame. I got my long 5/16 drill, and I'm going to run it through these pieces. And I could stick bolts in there to hold that thing in place. I blacken the heads with just a marker pen, magic marker. Set the pieces in after I get all these spacers drilled. Set the pieces in, put a bolt in one hole while I drill this hole all the way through, and then put a bolt in there, take this bolt out and drill that one all the way through. Because all these holes have to line up. And I got the backing piece clamped on there. I'm going to run 5/16 drill through these holes, and I'm going to enlarge it to 3/8 to take this T-nuts. It'll be there. That's so I don't have to hold it with a wrench. All I have to do is loosen up these bolts. I'm going to slot this here. These holes are going to be slotted, so it should lift right off and then drop down. And when I tighten them up, it'll sandwich between the frame, the outer piece, and this inner piece here. This is the really tedious part, is fitting this little pole that has to fit into these notches, and it has to clear them all. Have to file a little more down here, narrow this up, take some off back here. Okay, I'm almost there, I'm getting there. I've got my handbrake to a working stage. I don't have a rod yet. I need clevises and I don't have them here, so I have to engage the pawl by hand. Eventually I'll have a spring inside of here. There's a piece of wood epoxied onto this rod. When I push down on it, disengage the pawl. So that's working, and it'll get better when I get the rod.